I'll just say my biggest reasoning for this is that there is so much out of your control. Welcome to Life Unleashed,
the podcast all about creating the best life for you and your furry best friend.
If you're a dog mom on the go, juggling life, work, and the endless joys of being a dog parent, then you're in the right place. I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick.
And together with the incredible dog mom community from Tails Up Pup, we're here to share advice, stories, and the obsession we have over the love for our dogs.
Get ready to laugh, learn, and lean on each other because life with your dog just got even more awesome.
We officially have a 9-month-old in the house. That is wild.
Time is going by insanely fast.
He's 3/4 the way done his first year.
3/4. That is crazy.
And now, do you think that I'm less crazy that I was planning his birthday in advance? Like, it's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, I guess it is true, but it just thinking about having a 1-year-old still feels a lot. It feels like it's going to be a full year before he's 1. I know it's only a few months, but it still feels really far away.
It flew by.
But saying we have a 1-year-old doesn't feel like that's going to be anytime soon.
Is this your favorite age so far, or what has been your favorite phase?
I'd say every month has been my new favorite month.
It gets better and better?
For me, it has been. I feel like. What do you think?
I feel like the same way. I've enjoyed every stage a little bit more than you have. When they're newborns, I feel like guys kind of just have a little less that you want to play and do things, and guys don't really care as much about sitting on a couch and snuggling the little babies.
Yeah, that's probably true. And it is funny though. It's he's always loved his mom, but now you can see him making that conscious choice between you and me more.
Yeah, so we had trouble putting him down for his nap to film this podcast, and I could tell that he was having separation anxiety. He literally just wanted to be attached to me for the last hour, and he wanted to play, but he wanted to be touching me while playing.
And then this morning, very, very early, I went up and got him out of his crib, and he didn't want me, he wanted you, and then the rest, the next 2 hours, he basically just wanted to cling to you.
Yeah, he loves his mom so much, which is very sweet, but there is no downtime for me.
Yeah, it is interesting. I feel like every age, every new month has been different things happening, but I would say each one has continued to be my new favorite. However, he is there's pros and cons to all of it. Now he's throwing mini temper tantrums, which is funny.
Yeah, if we don't let him have something he wants, he cries. And I am shocked that is happening at such a young age, because I thought that was more of a toddler thing.
Yeah, I thought that was everyone says the terrible twos, that's when it starts to happen. But it's definitely when we stop him from doing something he wants to do, even if it's dangerous, he freaks out. He's cries pretty hard.
Yeah, we have learned to pick and choose our battles, and some things maybe if it's not dangerous, if it's something that I wouldn't want him to do, like getting dirty or crawling on cement, but it's not dangerous, I let him do it, because I'm trying to pick and choose when I tell him no, and I want him to know that no is important to listen to and not just something that I don't want him to do. And so I feel like it's been hard to, pick those things of when we're going to tell him no. But right now we're more choosing to say it when it's dangerous or something he really shouldn't do, like wires or dumping the dog water on the floor. That's not really dangerous, but he just shouldn't do that.
I feel like we do a pretty good job also of letting him do dangerous things
supervised.
Safely. Yeah, supervised and safely. For example, he really likes to crawl on the fireplace. He likes to crawl all over the couch and, get in some pretty crazy and dangerous positions. If he was to fall, he'd definitely get hurt. But if we're right there to catch him, we kind of let him do dangerous things safely.
Right now, the phase that Callan is in is that he is very strong and good at sitting, but he is new to standing on his own, unsupported. And so he wants to do it more and more because it's a new skill he's learned, but he will just fall on his bottom a lot. And so he has to be in a safe place to do that. And then we've learned even now, even though we think he's super strong at sitting, if he gets super excited or sees something, he might fling and fall over.
Yeah, the other day we were playing a song and he was getting so excited for the song. He was bouncing up and down so hard, when he was seated, that he threw himself backwards.
And that was the first time he fell over while seated in a while, but it really kind of reminded us that you're not always in the clear and you have to be mindful of where he is at all times. And right now he loves climbing up these little foam stairs that we got him, but he doesn't necessarily know how to get down all the time. He knows how to get down, but if he sees something he wants, he'll just fall off.
Yeah, or reach for something that like he definitely can't reach, and then he'll topple over.
So he always has to be supervised.
Yeah, I mean, and we knew that. I feel like we expected that, but it is now that he's more mobile. It's like he's so fast. Oh my gosh, we have a plant in the corner, and he loves to go get the dirt, and like he'll be maybe like 10 or 15 feet away, and you're like, okay, I'm good. I can just go over here for 1 second or whatever, and then you hear the little pitter patters on our like hardwood floors. He's like beep beep beep, and he runs over there, and like as soon. Like in a blink of an eye, he's got his hands in the dirt.
He is really fast. And a lot of people have commented how fast he is at crawling. And I think he's fast, but when other people comment it, I'm like, oh, he must be actually like faster, like this age.
Yeah, he's got a burst mode.
I do wonder when he will walk. I keep thinking it's coming like sooner rather than later, but I do think he has a little bit more time because he is standing unassisted now, but he won't move from that position.
The other thing someone said that I think probably could be true is because he's such a good crawler, he's fast, he pretty much can get everywhere he wants to crawling, that may delay his walking slightly because he doesn't have as much of a need to want to walk. I thought that he wasn't going to do a ton of crawling and that he'd be a very early walker, but he's become a very good crawler since then. So,
which apparently is very essential in their learning. If you just completely skip the crawling, that has a lot to do with the developmental things in their brain later on.
That's very interesting to me. I wonder what's going on there.
Someone else who was like I don't know, in the teaching profession told us that jumping rope correlates to reading. And so I thought that was interesting too. Were you not there for that conversation?
No.
Yes, she was saying that if your kid can't jump rope, then they're likely to be delayed in reading or something like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder why. Is it like a pacing thing, or it seems very different?
I don't know, the same part of the brain, I guess.
Huh.
I don't know.
So like
I'm not well educated on it.
I wonder, is it a hack to try to get your kid to jump rope? They'll be better at reading, or it's more of one of those things that if they can't do it well naturally, then they're probably going to struggle reading naturally.
Yeah, I do not know the answer to that question, but I do know that crawling correlates with developmentally, like you're supposed to do the things in order for a reason, and if they skip one, then it can be a problem later on. But obviously, like, most people are fine, and like if your kid does that, like, don't take me and this information for anything, because this is just what I've heard.
I wonder if that explains a lot about my faults, because I didn't crawl very much. I went straight to walking.
Your parents said you barely crawled.
Yeah, so are my deficiencies from that?
Who knows? Now for the big question of the podcast.
The big question.
Is parenting harder than running a business?
Oh, snap. That is a tough question.
Okay, give your answer, and then I'll give mine on which you think is harder. Actually, let's say it on the count of three.
Oh.
One.
Which one's harder?
Yeah, which one's harder? 1, 2, 3.
Business. Really?
For sure, without a doubt.
For sure?
Yeah.
You're hardcore there?
Okay, I will preface this by saying that every kid is different, every business is different, and every situation is different.
People are literally listening to this right now being like, oh, that just means you have an easy kid.
I will say, from my personal experience with the business I own and the child I have and my life circumstances, that running a business is significantly harder than raising a child.
Wow. One thing I'll also say before I get into all this, I'm only speaking from the experience of raising the one kid that we have through 9 months.
Right.
So I can't speak to what it's like to raise a toddler or teenagers or any of that. So we'll see if that changes, or like when we have 2 kids.
I think raising a kid gets harder and harder as they get older and they can comprehend more and they can rebel more. I think it's going to get way more difficult as he gets older. But I still, even with that in mind, I'll just say, my biggest reasoning for this is that there is so much out of your control in the business realm that, to me, that stress is not comparable to any stress that I can mentally prepare for in parenting. Now, I think people are probably thinking and would if they were in a conversation to me face to face, would say, well, there's a lot about your kid that's out of your control. And I do think that that is true, which is why it's going to get harder and harder as he makes his own decisions and becomes his own human being. But I do think we have a lot more control in the examples that we set and the morals that we believe in and trying to make him the best human being he can be. I think we have a lot more control in that aspect than we do in how our business turns out or results in our business.
Yeah, I think to me the reason that like okay, so both of them are like you're always feeling like you have to be on. Like parenting is nonstop, and that's the one thing that like I was definitely correct in my expectations for going into parenting. I was like, I think running a business is really going to help prepare us for that, because we really understood as business owners like this idea of like 24/7, 365, you're somewhat always thinking about it, and you're kind of always having to be on, right? And so everyone says that's like the biggest change for parenting. They're like, you used to have all this, free time, or, you didn't have to be on 24/7. And then when you have this kid, you're going to have that. I felt like we already had that with the business. And that's why I feel like it is correct to say like running a business is kind of like, right, your business is your kid. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of feel like we had some of that going on. But I feel like the biggest difference between the two is like, one is like tied to like your like financial stuff, like, so you have to put in a lot of effort for both a kid and a business. And like you said, it's kind of out of your control in both aspects, but one of them leads to like, out of your control of like, are you going to be able to pay your mortgage versus like, is it going to be out of your control to like how your kid, turns out? I feel like one just seems like it's a little bit more stressful than the other one. I'm not stressed out about how Callan's going to turn out, I would say.
I am stressed out about how he'll turn out because I do think about things like, I don't know, when you hear about like Brian Koberger, like crazy things on the internet, I'm like, what if my child turned out like that? But when you think about like where they came from and all that stuff, a lot of it does have to play into it. But a lot of people say like there is no handbook and blah, blah, blah. There are a lot of handbooks for parenting, and there is so much research and there is so much guidance to help you. And again, everyone's situation is different. Everyone's kids is different. There's not a specific handbook on how to raise Cal and Karis. Like there isn't, but we have so much knowledge from different people in our lives, different books in our lives, that we are way more well-rounded. There was no guidebook on how to run a successful dog bandana business from, 2018. Like we were kind of early in the game where we were completely figuring everything out. And even there weren't a lot of YouTube videos on specifically what we were trying to do. So I think that with that even plays a role in.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. It is hard because I feel like with a kid, the idea, because it's like this, unique individual that like really becomes their own person. Like the idea with that is like you try to do as much as you can right as a parent, but ultimately as they get older, like you hope that what you instilled in them leads to good decision making from them. But then after a certain point, it's like that's really on them, right?
Right.
It's like their decisions. Like if they, get older and, are teenagers and adults and are making bad decisions despite all the good stuff that you've tried to, instill in them, like, so, that's not always on the parent. That becomes, they have to become responsible for their own decisions. And while that can still be hard, that's not really like our job per se to, we have to, I guess, eventually like let them go out into the world.
And most kids will rebel. There are some outliers who are like very, like follow the rules. That is who they are. But I would say for the most, I rebelled a little bit. For the most part, I feel like every kid rebels a little, and that's probably good for them because then they can feel like they made their own decisions and like learned from that.
Yeah. Build their own identity.
But there's some things that you should not do in life. And I hope that he wouldn't do those things. But I feel like overall, the stress in the business side is not comparable to the stress in parenting. And again, this is just my personal opinion. I'm actually a very anxious person, and I'm shocked how not anxious I am, especially with having a newborn in the house. Like I really wasn't as anxious as I thought I would. And I know some moms like postpartum and anxiety is like a huge thing. And I thought I was going to have that just based on my nature. And so I am very lucky and blessed that I did not have that. And maybe my opinion on this would be different. But for me personally, I think that the anxiety I have for the business is astronomically more, because you can put all of your effort, all of your heart and soul. You can follow every like rule there is in the business game, and you can still fail. And I feel like in parenting so far in the 9 months, we've followed every rule. We've done everything successful that we could, and it's turned out okay for us. And so those are not even comparable to me. It's like, how can you put all your efforts in, it could mean nothing.
Yeah.
There is a lot of luck in business, in not just our business, a lot of businesses, but for us, we run a business that almost solely runs through social media. Social media is a platform that we do not own. Instagram could vanish tomorrow. We saw it with TikTok. TikTok vanished. It came back, but anything like that can vanish in a day, and we don't know what we would do if that happened. And that's like a question that people ask, and it's like, we have learned to live in the moment and just like take what is in front of you for like what it is, and you can always figure things out later. So we try not to think about worst case scenarios in that aspect, but we would have a huge
It'd be a big problem.
Big problem. Yeah. I mean, we have our email list, and that's why we always tell people, build an email list, because it's something you own. It's like the only huge marketing thing that we own as business owners. Everything else could be taken from us, and we would be screwed in that aspect.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is coming down to, it sounds like for you, is like, and for me, is definitely like the financial aspect and thing that's tied to it. As an example, I feel like, at least the jobs that I've had in the past, it's like you kind of have a level of effort that you have to put in to do a good job. And if you do that, you are going to get paid, and you are on the clock for, say 8 or 9 hours a day, and, you're there 5 days a week. But besides that, you really don't have to, sometimes you might have to be doing some emails and things on the weekend, but like overall, it feels a lot more stable than, the job that we have. I think there is some upsides to our job. Obviously, if things go really well, we could do, way better. Whereas like you can't make double your salary in 1 year generally just because, things went your way.
I was also trying to think of how like the average person who has a, 9 to 5 job, or like a traditional office job, those people could lose their job at any moment too. They could get fired. They could get laid off. However, the mindset is you go get another job. That could also be for us. We have a plenty fine resume, and we could go get another job. The biggest difference is not only have we put our heart and soul into this business, you could have done that in a traditional job as well. You likely did not put your entire investment into it, money-wise, where we have.
Yeah.
And so if everything hit the fan, we had to go find another job, just like Bob down the street. Bob gets fired on the same day that social media vanishes. We're like, oh my gosh, we all have to go get jobs. We could get jobs probably equally the same, opportunity level as him. However, he did not lose his investment monetarily.
Yeah, if you think about like our story over the last almost 7 years now, we started Tails Up Pup with a very small investment, but what we've done over the years is basically like any really excess profit besides like what we needed to like scrape a living by, we've invested back into the business. That's how we were able to buy, 3 roughly $20,000, machines. That's how we were able to start hiring employees. That's how we were able to get the office space, buy all the furniture for the office space, buy the sewing machine, like all these things. We've really just taken every dollar that we've had, extra from the business and put it back into the business. So that leads to a really big dollar amount. And that's the investment that Dani's like talking about. So if the business, all of us now, some of that stuff, could we sell? Yes, if like it went belly up, but we're not going to get nearly the money that we put into it.
So my justification to Nick when we were debating, do we buy these machines? Because yes, you can sell them, but you wouldn't get nearly the $20,000 that we spent on them, is that you can.
And that's each.
Yeah, you can take an embroidery machine and you could go into any niche market. You could become just a local embroiderer and take people's things. Like there is so much you can do with embroidery itself that we could have any type of business. And I would be confident that we could always have some type of embroidery business, whether Tails Up Pup vanished or not. We could do something with those embroidery machines. So that was not my worry. And I think I got Nick on board for that. I did have another thing I was going to say, but now I kind of forget.
My whole point in saying that is like that's kind of like what I feel like you're talking about with the investment is like I guess with a normal job, you put in your investment of the blood, sweat, and tears into the job, but like generally you're not having to be like, oh, well, I want to try to be more efficient, so I'm going to buy my, new computer. I'm going to buy,
Right.
Some people might have to do that, but like for us, it's every little bit of extra money we had rather than that being like, oh, we made more money this month. It was like we could have taken it off the table, but then we couldn't have grown the business like we did. And so that's always been this kind of catch-22. Now we've kind of, scaled back so we can actually pay ourselves more and feel better about that. But like in the beginning, every dollar above and beyond living, expenses was like literally going back into the business.
I remember what I was going to say now. That the other biggest risk that we took and still have is that both husband and wife, the two people who are putting money into this household, are in the same business. So a lot of my friends who do something similar, own a business like I do, their husband has a different job, whether they own their own business and it's something different or they have a traditional job. Both of their eggs are not all in one basket. So that is another thing that we have on the line because we would both have to figure something out.
Yes. Yeah,
that also just adds to our daily stress because we have to come up with we have to make the amount of money that we need to make doing the same thing.
Right. No, and I mean that definitely leads. And I feel like that is a pro. Like I feel like if we're competing against another dog bandana company, for instance, like having two people going full on at it is helpful. But at the same time, like it does lead to the eggs in one basket. I didn't get to say this, but I am a little shocked with how unstressed you are about like raising a kid and Callan. I thought you'd be more anxious.
Isn't it surprising?
That is surprising.
It's very out of my nature, and that was actually the first thing when my mom came down and stayed with us for a week when Callan was born. That was like the thing she was most shocked about that she had told me. She was like, I cannot believe how calm you are. My mom was actually the one hovering over the bassinet like, is he okay? Is he breathing? And I was like, Mom, you need to calm down because you're going to stress me out. And I think it's just like having that mindset has like allowed me to be like, okay, like if I was constantly stressed, I don't think I would be as good of a mom.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure that like anytime you add additional stress, it probably doesn't help.
Now, something bad happened to him. I do think I would look back and be like, could I have been more vigilant? Should I have been more aware? I feel like I'm as aware as I need to be, but I do wonder if something bad happened, if I would look back and then I would be like, oh, I should have been more anxious.
I feel like what you're saying makes it seem like we're not vigilant. I feel like we're very vigilant and we're very like on top of that stuff, but not in like a anxious, overbearing way. I feel like I just feel like it's hard to explain. Like we're doing all the things that we need to do to like be the most vigilant and good parents that we can, but we don't let that like cause anxiety, I guess.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like anxiety is like really in your core. Like it's not something that I personally can control. When I'm anxious, like Nick will be like, just don't. And I'm like, I literally can't control that.
Yeah.
I will say the biggest blessing, the most amazing thing that comes out of owning this business that we have and have brought into our home is allowing us to both be present in raising our child, because every time I just even look out the window because our neighbor has a baby too, I'm like, okay, and their situation's different too because he works from home, but I'm just like thinking about other people's situations and I'm like, okay, it is so rare for your baby to wake up and see both faces, have lunch, see both faces. Like, it's just, we are actually very unique, and I'm so glad that he gets to have that, because like a lot of babies only see one parent most of the time, or
either
even
one or none.
Yeah, or none. So especially at 9 months, even when I was thinking about like breastfeeding and like I was proud of myself for making it to 9 months, and like hopefully I can make it to a year, but I'm just proud I've made it to where I am. And I'm like, all these parents who like go to a job away from their baby, like I don't think I could physically pump all that milk and do all that. Like that's so much stress and like time in addition to doing a job and everything. Like I'm just so glad that I get to be with him, and I will not take that for granted. If I ever have to go get a different job, I will always be grateful that I had this time.
No, that's so true. And like with the stress and anxiety of running the business and kind of like of the stuff that we've talked about, why we feel like it's harder than raising a kid, there are some great benefits.
When we talk about hiring help or having some extra hands in some aspect, I always get that's probably like the most stress induced question for me at the moment, because I don't know what I would want, because I love spending time with him, but I don't want to lose myself entirely in him. And I don't want to be consumed by the business fully either. Like we've had Nick's cousin come a few times this past week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And she came here and it was just for 2 hours. And to me, I'm like, that was kind of the perfect balance, because in his middle wake window, someone came and helped. I was able to work a little bit extra. I can get a ton done in 2 hours, but then I still got plenty of time with him. And so that was kind of my best of both worlds right now. So I'm enjoying that.
Yeah, I feel like it's gonna change when he's gonna be going to like his little mother's morning out not too long in August. Preschool.
Preschool is different.
Oh, okay. He's going to preschool next year, and so that's only 2 days a week, but still, like, that's gonna start to change things.
Yeah, I think that will be really good for him. I know we were talking about the attachment, and based on my research, that is healthy at the age and development. So I'm not worried about it, but I would like him to create some independence as he grows up. And I think it will be good for him to be away from mom and dad, make some friends, enjoy other people. And, you only know what to do. Like what you only know what you know. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And so when another person comes in, they might sing different songs, play different games, teach him different words. And so, I'm only teaching him what I teach him. And this is actually very interesting, actually. Actually, I took Callan to the park and I met this girl, and I was like, my son's really strong. He can, because she was commenting on him standing, and her baby was 2 weeks different, not standing yet. And I was like, yeah, he is really strong and he can stand, but he's not doing the things like clapping or waving. And she was telling me like, oh yeah, my son just started that and he will do the motions to the wheels on the bus. And I'm like, I never sing that song. So I'm like, it's just interesting. It puts into perspective, like, how often does she sing that song that her son started doing that? And my son has barely heard that song. Well, he's heard it on like the phone when I play music, but like, it's not something I sing and act out all the time. So I just found that interesting.
Yeah, the differing like adult influences and playing with other kids, that has got to be a good thing for them.
Yeah.
Well, this was a very interesting topic. I feel like it's funny that we both think the same thing, but I'm not surprised at your answer.
Yeah.
Are you surprised at my answer?
No.
I wonder if...
Well, for you, I would think you would for sure say business, because you are a little less involved in the parenting, just because like you don't have to feed him. You don't really like have to deal with him in the night if he does get up, and like you change less diapers. Like,
so of course it's easier for me.
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Yeah. True.
But again, overall, this was just something to talk about in the here and now. And maybe we'll come back in a year from now and we can do a part 2. And
when we have 2 kids, we're going to be like, nope, kids much harder.
Well, I do think the more kids you have, and as soon as you become outnumbered, like, and then you have to drive places and deal with schedules, like there's a lot that is involved in other, involving more people in your family. So I definitely get that. And I know that's why I'm being honest. My answer likely could change. This is just my answer for now. But yeah.
Yeah, but both have lots of pros and there's cons for both. There's difficulties with both.
Yes.
So this is where we are now.
Thank you guys for listening. We hope you guys enjoyed and maybe learned something. And we will see you guys next week. Bye.